So Dawn, I just wanted to pass the floor to you and you can take it away.
Amazing. I am so excited to be here. And I love these sessions to be interactive. So if you have questions, feel free to unmute or pop something in the chat. I want it to be, yeah, just interactive and a discussion, and I'll talk. And also, if you can, since I don't know many of you, if you can pop in what it is that you do. Um, that helps me too, because then I'll just tailor all my examples to your niche. So that would be helpful for me as we get going. But I wanted to kick us off just with a quick story. Raise your hand if you are a parent in here. I know a couple of you have kids. Okay, so those of you that are parents are going to really relate to this. When my daughter was around 3 and 4, I she did not like having her hair brushed. And it was always this like daily battle, right? Of brushing the hair and making sure that she looked decent to go out of the house. And what I started doing was asking her in the morning, do you want a Cinderella bun or an Elsa braid? Or do you want Anna braids today? And once I made that change in how I presented it to her versus it's time to brush your hair, um, she would think about it and be like, oh, I want to feel like Elsa today. Or we even made up one. I made up a hairstyle called the mermaid braid, uh, which she fell in love with. And it was no longer a fight. Like 99% of the time, she chose, whatever princess she wanted to look and feel like that day. And then I was able to brush her hair and we were both happy, right? She got what she wanted, which was to look and feel like a princess. And I got what I wanted, which was to not have my daughter look like she was raised in a barn. And so it was win-win for both of us. And I wanted to start with this story because that is copywriting. That is getting the yes. And as we talk through this session, I'm going to talk about how that relates to our businesses. But my favorite definition of copywriting is the art of getting other people to do what you want them to do, but for their reasons. I'm going to say that one more time. The art of getting other people to do what you want them to do, but for their reasons. And I always say copywriting not only is it a game changer for your business, I swear I use my copy skills just as much with my husband, with my kids, because I want them to do certain things, right? But you have to have that buy-in for there really to be a change. And back in the day, before I was a copywriter, I was a pastor and a director of a nonprofit where we were doing about 80,000 services a year in our community. And a lot of that work was with drug and alcohol addicts. Same thing. Little did I know that this would prepare me for copywriting. If they didn't have buy-in, if they didn't want to change, there was going to be no changing. They were going to fall back into drugs and alcohol every single time. And it was very frustrating. It was a hard thing to do. But these concepts have applied from that to my relationship with my spouse, to client work, to getting people to buy things, to getting my daughter to, eat her broccoli and brush her teeth and brush her hair, all the things, right? So these skills, this idea of getting other people to do what you want them to do, but for their reasons, will carry over into all areas of your life. So it is a worthwhile skill. And I know Taylor would agree that even just for your business, copywriting is the key skill. And a lot of people that I've talked to, my clients and other entrepreneurs have said copy is the one thing that has just like quantum leaped their business, gone from, not quite hitting the 6-figure mark to multi-6 to 7 figures and beyond, was really investing in copy and putting your time, money, resources, whether you're outsourcing it or learning to master the skill yourself, either way, but that's something you do early on in your business because it matters that much. But I'm telling you, you'll see it bleed into other areas of your life and you'll be like, ooh, this is fun. As long as you use it for good. Okay. We'll promise that's the foundation. We use this only for good. So that is where I start when I'm talking about copywriting. That's the definition. Copywriting is different than messaging. And I know Taylor talks a lot about your overall brand messaging and how to embody your uniqueness and create a message that's magnetic and a movement. I know she has the Nourish movement, which is beautiful. That's important, and that's sort of the bedrock and the foundation before you get even to the granular copywriting, if that makes sense. You have to have the movement, the message, and those are different than when I'm talking specifically about the words, what you're um, what you're actually writing in emails, social media posts, sales pages. And I know Taylor also wanted me to talk a little bit about like the nuances between these as well, because there is some difference, but there you can repurpose a lot. And I want to talk some about that today as well. Now, going back to that definition of getting people to do what you want them to do for their reasons. So I want you to think about your ideal clients right now. Maybe you have one avatar, you have a specific client you've worked with that you've absolutely loved, and you can kind of picture that person in your mind. And I want you to think about, what is it that they truly want? Okay, like thinking of my daughter and the hair, she didn't want her hair to look cute. She wanted to look and feel like a princess. Okay, so the try to scroll off all these. The chat is blowing up. Okay, so like declutter coaches. So let's go with that one, Nicole. Declutter coach. What do moms actually want? It's what we want to think about is like layers of an onion that you're peeling back. You want to keep asking why, because it's not about decluttering. That's the outer transformation. What is it for that mom? Is it as within, so without? That outer chaos means that it's a reflection of inner chaos and she's not at peace. Does she want peace? Does she feel like a bad mom if her house is messy and unorganized? Does she, yeah, you want to ask yourself, like, what's the layers beneath? If it's somebody who wants to lose weight, it's not about the weight. It's about something under that. It's about confidence. It's maybe attracting the soulmate, or maybe it's feeling like things with your spouse have sort of cooled off and you want to feel sexy again. And so you want to lose the weight. It is not about the weight, right? It's about that inner transformation that people also want. And so you want to be thinking about those two things for your ideal client. Is the outer transformation, that's that top surface level, maybe for you, joining this mastermind is, making 10K months or 20K months or whatever that ideal revenue goal is for you. A lot of us business owners have that. So it's an easy one to relate to. So then you ask yourself, like, okay, well, why? Why do you want a successful business? Why do you want a business that allows you to only work 10 or 20 hours a week and make 7 figures? Or why do you want an aligned business? Is it so you can be proud of yourself? Is it so that you can be confident? Is it so that you show your daughter what's possible for women in the world? Or, like you have reasons, and it's a good practice to do this with yourself. And I'll mention this a lot because a lot of our copy, we can help ourselves with our copy by looking at, okay, why do I want this? Why did I join Taylor's group? What was the reason that caused me to say yes? And when you think introspectively on yourself, then you'll be able to relate that. Okay, what is going to get the yes in my ideal clients? And what it comes down to is the things that we really want deeper below the surface. You're always going to have, like I said, you'll always have the outer transformation. You'll always have the inner transformation. The inner transformation is really what people want. It is not this surface level. You can talk about that, but you always want to be going to the heart, right? We make decisions with our emotions, and you'll want to remember that, because we'll make the decision, and maybe you could even relate to jumping into like this container was maybe it was an emotional decision. You made that decision, and then your brain immediately is like, this is a good decision because da, 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 da. Like our logical brain kicks in and is like, don't worry, girl, like this is good because it's going to be an investment in your business and it's going to do this and this and this. And that logical brain always comes secondary to our emotional. And the emotions is really where you want to put your focus and think about the reason. So if we're making decisions on emotions, then you have to put yourself in the position of your ideal client and say, okay, what is she feeling right now? And what is she or he wanting to feel later? And in copywriting, we would say, what's the pain and what's the aspiration? Those are the two words that we would use for these two states of being. Now, there are 8 core emotions. 5 are what we would say are like the negative or the pain emotions, and 3 are aspirational emotions. And I'll pop them in the chat just so that you can, there's 8 core emotions. The first bit are what we would generally label them the negative ones because they're the harder ones. So it's anger, pain, guilt, fear, and shame. Okay, so anger, pain, guilt, fear, or shame. Now, your ideal clients, we all have a mixture of all of these, but usually there's going to be one that comes out a little bit more than all the rest for your ideal clients. So let's take the a weight loss one, for example. A lot of times shame is going to be the biggest emotion that comes out. They're ashamed of what they look like, or maybe that they let themselves go, or whatever. There's shame. Sometimes there's pain. Again, there's like layers of this. So you might have one that's like really strong for your ideal client, and then one that's kind of a close second. So I want you to really think about what's the primary driving painful emotion, because when we're in pain, that's when we finally make a decision to change, right? When it's painful enough that we're like, okay, I have to move. Because our primal instinct, I always say this with love, that we are very lazy as human beings. We don't change unless we're like poked and prodded and like pushed off the cliff. So like, okay, I'll do it. Because it's just usually easier to stay the same, right? I imagine we can all relate to times where it was scary, or we felt the pain so much that then we invested in something else. Or, when I went from being a pastor to starting my own business, it was because the situation got so painful and abusive and unlivable that then I found what my next path and purpose was. But I would have been too scared to ever leave had it not gotten so bad. So those are the 5 negative emotions, and then the positive ones are joy, passion, and love. Yeah, Amanda says, I read that we tend to not change until the situation we're in becomes more uncomfortable. Exactly. More uncomfortable and worth the pain of payment, right? Pain and payment are very similar. Our primal brain says like, oh no, don't buy, don't do that because you're going to be in pain because you're paying for transformation or the pain of going through the transformation. So our primal brains, they really just want to keep us safe. But in doing so, it keeps us really from stepping into our greater purpose, because we're meant to change and grow and transform. And so joy, passion, and love, those, you want to figure out which one is the primary emotion that your person desires. It will always come down to, when I talk about those layers of the onion, and keeping on asking like, well, why do they want a decluttered home? Why do they want to lose weight? Why do they want to make more money in their business? Ultimately, everybody, for any situation, we want to feel better about ourselves. So write that one down. Because as you peel back those layers for your ideal client, that'll be like the the core, the egg
What's
right?
so interesting, Dawn, that like I'm thinking of too is like I don't think it matters at all what you sell. Like you could literally be selling anything. So it's not even about the product being the right product or selling this versus selling that, or this is the perfect solution to the thing. It could be anything interchangeably under those underlying surfaces.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, let's go back to the hair example. That's not life or death for my daughter, but she wants to feel better about herself. I mean, who doesn't want to look and feel like a princess? Right. And it's a funny example, but it works. And it's great because then our brains can be like, okay, what is that for my ideal client? What's the look and feel like a princess? Because she wants to feel better about herself. And we all just want to feel better about ourselves. And that's what your ideal client wants as well. And Taylor's exactly right. It does not matter what you sell. It doesn't. Can you communicate the message that it will help your ideal client feel better about themselves and get what they want? And that's something that's really key too, is what they want, not what they need. Okay, a super important delineation because we buy what we want. That's why we buy ice cream and donuts and vacations, and we want those things, right? What do we need? A gym membership or different things that we know intellectually. Yes, eating healthy, getting exercise, moving my body. Those are all good things. I need gym and water. We get angry spending money on tampons. That's hilarious. We need them though. Well, yeah, we won't get into that conversation. How would you word feeling better about yourself? Like feeling proud? Yeah, it's like that self-confidence, that being proud of yourself. Yeah, feeling better about yourself as a mom, as a business owner, as a sexy woman who's here to live her best life and live out her purpose. Want snacks and TikTok.
And maybe
Yes.
this is where your movement comes in because, like, I use the word nourishing, and like you guys know, that's the thing that's going to make you feel better about yourselves is growing in a nourishing way. So, how can you connect your movement to desire based marketing?
Yeah, exactly. And I think the other key with movements is that you're part of something. You're part of something bigger. Movements are very successful for that reason because there's community. We are like pack animals, right? Like we want to be part of the thing, the tribe. I mean, back in the day, our primal brain, which we still all have that primal part of our brain, was survival. And the way to survive was to be with a group of people, not alone by yourself in a cave where a bear could get you. You were better off having some people around you to fight off the wolves, the bears, the lions, the tigers, oh my. Um, and so having a movement, I mean, how many of you are familiar with funnel hackers? Anybody know the funnel hackers movement? Okay, one funnel away. Again, messaging, right? There's the aspiration, and bringing people together. And also notice, and I know Taylor, you have this too, you have the merch, right? Funnel hackers have stickers, and you get a t-shirt when you sign up for ClickFunnels or you do the one funnel away challenge. You get a t-shirt because you're part of something. And when you're part of something, then you don't want to be excommunicated from the tribe. You're part of it. It's very powerful. It's very powerful. So if you can find a way to set your flag in the ground and saying, like, just like the nourish movement or the funnel hacker, like that's your thing, and this is what you're going to welcome people into, the safe space where you're all together with a common goal. It will be very successful. I want to create a yoga teacher training movement. Yeah, yeah. And so that's beautiful. And yoga people, I have a couple clients in the yoga space and they love that community component, right? They're very community oriented. Beautiful, beautiful. being the resistance. Okay, so remember to kind of recap the want versus the need. That's going to be different, right? How we talk about what they want is going to be different maybe than what they get inside. And it's not a clickbaity thing. But I imagine even, and Taylor's nodding, this is probably true. It's like when she talks about even this program, for example, she's talking about what you guys want, but when you get on the inside, it's probably a little bit different than what you're thinking, right? Like, for example, in a lot of coaching circumstances, what people want is the money or the clean house or the losing weight. But what you get on the inside is mindset, right? It's the transformation, it's that heart level, because that's what our behaviors are controlled by our thoughts and our feelings. And so if you're not addressing those needs, then you're not going to make a difference on that surface level. So whatever it is that you do, you do that inner transformation with your clients, but you still have to be talking about that outer. I always say speak their language to get them to pay attention and to deliver what they need to get. Yep. And that brings up a really good point of copywriting. There's an art and a science to it, but a lot of it literally is just saying back what your people are saying. Does that make sense? Like having a copy bank and writing down word for word, like, oh, my clients are saying this. For example, a couple of years ago, I launched a course on copywriting, and I used to, as I was like mid-launch, I changed the whole, like the main thing was how to sell without sounding salesy. And salesy is not a word. I think actually it has become one in the dictionary since then because it's so commonly used, but it wasn't even a word. And, I'd get the little squiggly line underneath it every time. But all of my marketing was how to sell without sounding salesy because that's what people wanted. Over and over and over, I heard, I don't know how to sell without sounding salesy. I don't want to be a used car salesman, right? Poor guys have a bad rap, but right, like, and so I started using it, even though like my little grammar Nazi heart was like, oh, I'm using a word all the time, it's not a real word, but that's what my people were saying, and so that is what I use. So that's what I want you to start thinking is like, what are your people saying all the time? I ask this of my clients all the time, because a lot of times we get up in our head about like the kind of transformation they're looking for, but they're not saying it in that way, and we have to make sure that we're actually saying it, because nobody's walking around being like, wow, I really need to find a transformation coach to make my life happier. Like nobody's walking around for that, right? They're like, man, my house is a mess. I don't know who that was, but whoever it is to help me declutter, or my business is a mess. I'm burnt out. I need Taylor to help me know how to not be burnt the F out and still make money, right? Like those are the things, that's what we're thinking. And that's why you want to enter the conversation that's going on in their head, which is the market research part, talking to your people and asking them like, what are you thinking? What are you feeling? And then literally using those same phrases. I always tell my clients to have a copy bank, whether it's Google Notes, Evernote, however, Trello, I don't care how you organize it, have somewhere where you literally have word for word what people are saying to you, and then just use that in your copywriting. Okay, Tara says, how do we do that ethically when they want superficial stuff? The micro moment vault. That's a great question. I think if that's where your people are at, then that's where you have to meet them, knowing that you're still setting the intention of that what they need. Is this, Tara, for you people who want the podcast and they're wanting like say money or leads from a podcast?
Not even that. It would be like people who have a podcast, but they want 10,000 downloads, or they want to be in the top 10 podcasters. And like what I'm teaching, yes, those things can result from that, but it's more about you can have a show that only has 1,000 followers or whatever or downloads and still make good money from them.
Mm-hmm. And in your case, that's a great like myth busting. Mm-hmm. You can go at it from the stance of like, and if you have stats, which I'm sure you do from some of your clients who only had 1,000 downloads or 2,000 downloads, those are great stats to be sharing, because then you're myth busting and you're saying like, people think that you need 10,000 or 1 million downloads in order to have a 6-figure business from your podcast, but you don't. Let me show you how. So that's what I do for yours, because the thing is, that's still where their mind is. It's not that we can't be myth busting that thought. Speak about it, because if that's what they're saying to you, then you could speak about getting more downloads, but then you could be like, but let me tell you a secret. You don't have to have that many to get the kind of results you want. I'll prove it to you. Ariel did blah, blah, blah. Taylor did blah, blah, blah. Like, I know you've got that client proof. So that's where I'd go at it with you. It's similar to like, I coach copywriters, and a lot of them will say they want 10K months. Drives me crazy because I'm just like, I'm so sick of talking about 10K months. Right. But that's what they all say that they want. So I'm like, okay, like I'll talk about it, but then, they get inside and they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize I needed the mindset. They'll actually tell me straight up, like, I don't need mindset. I just need your strategy to get 10K months. I'm like, okay, like, don't worry, you come on in and I'll show you the strategy. Right. And we're all kind of laughing because I'm sure you've heard something similar, just insert niche here. But the key is that, yes, it feels superficial, like, oh, I want X number of downloads. So speak to it, but then also be working on like that myth busting of, you don't have to. Like, I can help get you there, but let me tell you a story about XYZ who got insert the result they want by only having 2,500 downloads. So that's the way I would go at it with you. But unfortunately, yes, we sometimes have to speak to those superficial things because that's where they're at. And they remember that's that outer and then the inner. And you're always going to be speaking to both at some level, not like necessarily at the same time. But you think about some of the iconic hero journey movies, Star Wars, The Hobbit. There's always both. Any epic hero's journey, you have the outer, like, the search for the ring or defeating the Death Star. That's an outer transformation. But what's the inner transformation? Luke in Star Wars, his inner transformation was that he finally believed in himself, that he could do it. And he has that aha moment, like right after he defeats the Death Star, and he's like, oh my God, right? So that's ultimately what we want for our clients. And if we're using the same Star Wars universe analogies, you would be like the Obi-Wans, right? You're the guide. You're not the hero. Your client is the hero. Your client is Luke. He's the one that you're guiding along the way. And I think that's a mistake a lot of people make in copywriting and messaging. We do share our own story. You're the hero of your story. And it's important to share that. But when you're talking about your clients, we support them being the hero of their journey. And we're the Obi-Wan that comes alongside them and helps show them the way and gives them the support and things like that. So remember to think about your business in that way and to tell your stories about clients in that way. And that's another really key point. And we've segued right into that, which is perfect, is storytelling. Because we buy on emotions, right? That's why they say facts tell, stories sell, because we buy on emotions. And like I said, we back it up with logic, but the reason that stories work is because they're emotional. Think about the last movie you watched where you felt compassion for the poor main, the hero, and how, whatever the circumstances were such that they were pushed to move out of their comfort zone to go on this journey. They encounter obstacles along the way. They encounter the villain. You do not like the villain, right? There's a reason that we get angry watching movies when we really don't like characters, or in books. There's a reason for that, because we have an emotional attachment or emotional response to each character. We love them, we hate them, we're laughing, we're crying, and then at the end of the movie, all is well, except for Infinity War, which I hate that movie because of this reason. Because, and here's the thing, is because in stories, and I know there's another movie, I know it goes on, but I'm like, in that movie, it ends and Thanos wins, and it's not fair. Sorry if you haven't seen it, major spoiler alert. The good guy dies, and I just can't handle it because the good guy always has to win. Okay, good versus evil. We side with the good. We want the good to be triumphant, and that's the hero's journey. That's what you are going to walk alongside your ideal clients to complete their journey. The outer transformation, defeating the Death Star, losing weight, decluttering their house, building their business, whatever that is, the outer journey, you're completing that at the end. But in the meantime, during that whole outer journey, they're doing an inner journey. They're transforming their heart. They're learning to let go. They're learning to surrender. They're learning to forgive themselves. They're learning to step into a confident version of themselves that they haven't seen since they were 5 years old, right? Like those kinds of things that are going to happen as a result of your work are what we don't want to forget, that there's that the inner and the outer, and the way that we talk about it is through stories. And a lot of times, like I said, you can tell your story. Usually we are, it's like the mess becomes the message. So oftentimes you are your ideal client, say 3 or 4 years ago, right? So your story has validity and you absolutely need to share it. But the other part of this is telling stories of social proof. And the reason that it's so powerful is that, number one, stories, hit our emotions. And so we're more inclined to buy something when we can relate to it and when we're in that emotional state. But sometimes what happens with, I'll use Taylor as an example. So let's say Taylor, 7-figure coach, she has this business, it's all aligned, she has a kid, like she's living the dream, right? And you look at her and you're like, oh my God, my life is such a mess. But she has it all. So what you've done is you've put her on a pedestal up here and you're down here, and it's like that gap almost seems insurmountable. And we unconsciously, in a lot of icky, we do this a lot, even unconsciously. Subconsciously, we're not aware necessarily of I'm a mess too, I swear. It's so true, right? And that's the problem with putting people on pedestals is, number one, it's not true. But what we do is we then unconsciously put ourselves down. And you can never have that equality and that balance when you do that. But I say this because that's what happens when people look at you. They look at you and they're like, oh my gosh, she has the perfect house. She's the perfect mom. She's perfectly fit. She's this, she's that. And because you've been on your journey for, say, 3 or 4 years, they look at you sometimes and they'll hear your story and it's hard for them to relate. So that's why our client stories, that's where they come into play, because your ideal clients in many cases are going to be able to relate more easily with people who don't feel so perfect, or even though, like, usually we're sharing, like Taylor just said, I'm a mess. Like usually we're sharing our authentic self too, but they're still going to put us on a pedestal because we've made it in whatever way that they want to achieve. So when you share your client stories, which is so key, they'll relate to different things. Again, be talking about the emotions, like this person felt like they could never have a business like mine, or this person felt completely overwhelmed by the clutter in her house and thought it was impossible to ever get things straightened out, or to ever feel sexy or feel good in her body again, or whatever. But then you tell her transformation, right? So we're sharing social proof, which I want you to get in the habit of doing it like all the time, more than you think is necessary. I want you to feel like a broken record. Number one, because not everyone's seeing it, but number two, it's so powerful. I mean, how many of you, say in the last month, have either used a recipe that you looked up and you chose based on the reviews, or bought something on Amazon based on reviews? Anybody? Yep, I see people nodding. every fucking day. Yes. Me too. I mean, as even for things like recipes, which, you know, are not life and death, although, yeah, you don't want a gross recipe, right? But if there's a recipe that's a 4.6, let's say 4.6 stars and has 1,200 reviews versus a recipe that's 5 stars and has 1 review, you're like, oh, that's probably their mom. So why would I go with that recipe? Like, you're going to go with the one that might have less stars, but has way more social proof attached. Yeah, even when I shop online at Whole Foods, yep, red flag if there's no reviews. Yeah, but what's so interesting, Emma, in that point is that often we almost forget or we assume people just know about the results that we have, and we're not talking about it. Especially with women over the years, this is what I've seen more so with women. I feel like we have to combat it more than men do. They tend to be, say this lovingly, a bit more arrogant, more easily able to just be like, hey, I'm bad applesauce. I'm the man. I did this and this and this. You know, they're just a little bit more braggadocious than we are. And we tend to be like, oh, well, what will people think of me if I'm always sharing these results? Like, they're going to think I'm like braggy or whatever. And it's not true. People want to know that your clients get results. They want to see that because that inspires them to take action because they'll relate to it. So, and I know, Taylor, I think it's even part of sharing testimonials as part of your regular content thing. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's like at least weekly. If you can share more than that, I highly recommend it because all of us, we're like nodding and laughing every day. We are making choices based on social proof. Again, here's one of those things that's like, hey, once you realize your buying habit, it's like, ding, 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 let me think about I'm not all that different. We're all nodding. Yes, this is what we do. We buy based on social proof. So then what do we do in our business as a result? We've got to be sharing social proof. Also, I think, especially for women, we tell people about the products or the books we love, right? We just naturally do it. So, that's another method of social proof in our business, getting referrals and having people come to us because they know somebody who's worked with us that got amazing results. And so that is also part of, our business strategy, quote unquote, is, the social proof, all those little people that are out there talking to their people because of the results they got with you. But make a habit of whatever that is for you, putting it in your Google Calendar or whatever you can do, make a habit of sharing your social proof all the time, more than you think is necessary or comfortable. That would be my challenge to you. Because it's so important. Look at all of us who make decisions every day based on that. How to share social proofs if you don't have any reviews yet. Okay, great question, Zandra, and one that I get all the time on things like this. So if you're just starting out, do you have anyone that and you can unmute or pop it in the chat, do you have anyone that you've ever helped in your life before?
Oh yeah, I have done it before, but just in like for a big company and not for small companies and for myself.
Yeah. Yep. So perfect example. And what I find a lot is you have the proof. Maybe it was a different situation because you were paid, maybe that was your 9 to 5, but you were still helping people. What is it that you do?
I'm a virtual CFO, and I also want to start creating courses about, well, the virtual CFO is kind of like doing the job for them, and presenting it to them. But the courses, and I think what I want my movement to be is that I believe women are actually better with numbers than men. A lot of science says so, but women are more likely to hide behind it and not think that they can deal with it.
Yes, girl. Ooh, I love it. You get me in a whole rant on the numbers thing, but yes, we need you. Love it. Yes. So my question, I mean, you already said in your 9 to 5, you've been doing it. So you can use, just because someone hasn't maybe paid you specifically for your business, you were still paid in that job to do the role of CFO, right? So you could still share and you don't have to share names necessarily. I don't know if you have NDAs and things like that, where you can't share what businesses, or you can change the name. And where you're sharing, what you were able to do. Were you able to find, money laying on the table that they were missing? Were you able to find tax breaks? Were you able, like, it depends on what are the things that you were able to do for those companies while you were working for them that would relate to why they need you. And then your whole message about like empowering women to know the numbers rather than be scared of them, like that's really important message to share. Entrepreneurship, like, more often than not, is a complete shit show, because women are experts at whatever the thing is that they do, but they don't have a freaking clue how to run a business and how to actually like know their numbers. So that's where you come in. And you're like, I've done this for X number of years with X number of companies, like that kind of thing. So I would base it on that experience, and you'll get testimonials as you go. Does that help? Do you have some ideas,
No,
like examples?
that helps. I think I'm more like to train people to understand their numbers better, because a lot of people where I worked for hotels, and it's kind of like each department, like the spa, I don't know, like the different restaurants, whatever, there's like a head of department, and they kind of run it like their own company, So in the beginning, and this is where and I know Taylor has said some good stuff about messaging before, but this is where I'm scared. It's like a lot of people did not like me at first, because they're like, well, this is your job. And I like to tell them, like, well, I can run the numbers, but what actually happened, like the story that happened, like why these numbers came here, like I can't do that. Like, I'm not interacting with the customers, I'm not doing certain things. So sometimes with my messaging, I get insecure, because like it's like I need to take them through a very uncomfortable phase, and afterwards they feel very empowered and strong, and I know that. But sometimes I feel like, should I just sell that? Like, oh, because my idea is not necessarily, even though I say that sometimes, to get maximum profit. My idea is like, why do you want that profit? Or especially for small business owners, like my goal is actually to get my business to pay for as much as possible. And that doesn't necessarily mean maximum profit, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
It just makes like, what life do I want to live? And if I max out as a business owner, and you're a solopreneur, or like you have a small business, if you can take out as much money as possible, your profit actually come after that. And that's kind of what I want people to get, instead of like getting all, oh, this person says they have this profit margin, or this person says that. And I was like, okay, but someone I know, she just actually become a solopreneur, that not fired, but she got rid of her nanny. She still makes crazy amount of money, but she makes less because she also has her son home full time, and that's her goal,
Mm-hmm. And you can speak to all of that and say that, there isn't a cookie cutter for, every single business, that, maybe your revenue is less, but your profit's higher because you don't have that nanny, or, know what I mean? Like, there's different ways to play with the numbers. I would give examples of, that you gave the strategy. Yes, I know that, in all those cases, you weren't maybe implementing all the things. That's what you were saying, is that you would give them the strategy and they'd have to do the hard work or whatever, but you could still talk about the strategy and how it's customized. And because there's a lot of deception, especially around numbers, in the online space, and a lot of lies and misconceptions about what it looks like, and how, like, the difference between profit and revenue, and those conversations that are important to have, especially with women, because they can be empowered. And a lot of times what happens is we give our power away to a bookkeeper or an accountant or a guru of some sort, right? A lot of the men that tend to be in the finance industry, and we just are like, okay, you save me.
I like actually what you said with giving your power away, because that's a little bit what's happening.
Yeah. And that could be part of your movement, is like taking that power back and speaking to all of these things. Again, you don't have to and I see this a lot when people are transitioning from like corporate to entrepreneurship, that they feel afraid of talking about results that they've gotten or things they've done in their 9 to 5 as if it doesn't count, but it does. Like you still have all that experience to give people. I know Taylor had a comment about how she used all of her examples from the marketing agency when she was getting started on her own, because she still was part of that. Just because she was getting paid, you know, a monthly employee wage or whatever, doesn't discredit the fact that she had the expertise and that training so that she could then have the skills to help people now. So you're in a similar boat, I think, with a lot of people.
Amanda has a really great question too in the chat about what this actually looks like.
Okay, let me scroll back up. Okay, I'm curious what it would look like to create a piece of copy that shows social proof, testimonials, reviews, especially if it's good to post 1 or more times a week. I think in my brain, I'm seeing it in a very cookie cutter way, like a post with a photo of someone and a quote from them. For some reason, it's giving me the ick. Okay, so you can share different things. You could share just a quote. I always like to tell the story. So it can be a very simple, like, you know, so and so was at this place before we met. We did such and such work together, and now she's seeing this result. If you'd like to get this result too, here's how we can work together, or comment the word, whatever word you want to use, or something like that. I think when we tell it as stories, you also could say like, in the sense of like, my clients call me the funnel fairy or the word wizard. Again, I'm not directly calling myself funnel fairy or word wizard. Those are actual things my clients have said about me, but you're still getting that social proof. So it could be quotes like that. Like my clients tell me I'm the Mary Poppins of home decluttering, or, you know, something like that. And you're still using that. And then you could tell the story, or you could say like, today I want to tell you a quick story about Sarah, and, you know, blah, 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 blah. And it can be short. It doesn't need to be long. Yeah, Amanda.
And it can be in your words, right? Like I don't have to like quote them, because also I feel like on the outside you can really see the transformation too, to be able to talk to that. I guess I feel weird being like just pulling quotes like I'm writing a news article or something.
Yeah, no, a lot of times and there's a funny reason behind this. A lot of times I just tell the story rather than quoting directly. And I'll say why. And you can do it both ways. Sometimes people are not very succinct in their testimonials, and they don't really say it in a juicy way. They're just like, oh, my life was transformed. Versus like, I know Taylor has some where it's like they 3x their revenue in 2 months. That's very concrete numbers and a timeline. So if you ever have specific results in a specific time frame, that's the most ideal, is to share both of those. But a lot of times you're going to tell it almost in a better way than your clients. The one caveat to this is that I also highly recommend having screenshots of, you know, your private group or Voxer, or I always say that with a lot of my clients, when, you know, sales pages go live or email sequences go live or whatever, I get messages with a lot of expletives in them because they're very excited about the number of sales that are coming in. And so those ones are not polished. They're just like, holy fuck, like I already have 5 sales or whatever. Like they're all excited, right? So it's screenshot because you're capturing the emotion and their excitement of getting those results. And you can cut off their name, or, you know, put a GIF over it or something so that it's anonymous still. And you can ask them like, hey, is it okay if I share this? Nobody's going to know that it's you because you're not saying who it is. But you could also use that. I think screenshots are really powerful because it's the raw emotion. People are usually, when we do a formal testimonial, we're like, oh, I need to be proper and not say fuck. And like, right, they overthink what to say. Not that those aren't valuable. Definitely have a system, have an SOP for testimonials. so that you're getting those, so that you have at least the information to tell the stories. But if you have screenshots, I would also use those. And you can still set up the screenshot with a story. Like, hey, when we met, so and so was, stuck at 7K months and was feeling burnt out and just couldn't figure out how to get past that. And after working together for just 6 weeks, here's what happened, dot, dot, dot. And then, like, if this were, say, like a story slide or a carousel, the next page could be a picture of, oh my gosh, I just hit my first 12K month. Right. So you're still setting up the story, you're setting up that screenshot or that quote, but telling it in a compelling way, and then making the offer of, okay, here's how you could do it too, and take the next step with me.
Dawn, I know we're running a little bit on time, but there were 2 questions that came in with the same undertone of like, what's pain point marketing? Where does this fit in? How painful is too painful? I don't want people to feel like they're not doing enough, they're not trying enough. My take on that is like, I don't think you can make anyone feel any sort of way by telling the truth, but I would love to hear, like, what is your take on that scale?
Yeah, great question. I say you always need to have both, and you'll have varying degrees. I think part of it is just testing and part of it is your alignment, but you can't completely do away with pain. I'm not a like pain focused, sleazy, like twist the knife type of copywriter, but you have to still be able, the thing about talking about the pain is that the person has to know that you understand them. And the only way to know that is if you're talking about how much it sucks to be laying in bed on Sunday night, dreading having to go to work and leave your baby behind on Monday morning. Like, you have to be talking about that if you're speaking to helping women get out of their 9 to 5s and have a job, like be a stay-at-home mom and run a business, right? For example, you'd have to know and paint that picture of the pain, but then you also link it to the aspiration. What do they want? They want that time with their kiddo. They want, so we're not ever like leaving one without the other, if that makes sense. We just might have varying degrees. So I think it's important to acknowledge their reality. Yeah. And I was going to pop in here the pastor formula, which is not mine. It's Ray Edwards. It's on his website. So it's not something that's like you can't find yourself. He has a book, How to Write Words That Sell, that talks about this. But the P is the person, the problem, and the pain. And the A is the aspiration. T, testimonial. And you all can just write this down. And the reason that he has the P and the A is that we really need both. And you'll have to just kind of feel out what is the right level of pain and what's the right level of aspiration. A lot of times you'll see the two together. Like in a lot of standard headlines formulas, for example, you'll have both. You'll have, I'll pop it in here as well. How to biggest promise. Okay, how to, the one big promise. And that's another really key point, is the rule of one. Always rule of one, whether it's your social media post, your email, your movement, your program. There is always only one promise, one slant, one hook, one angle, one. It's a really easy trap to fall into, to like, we say, throw everything in the kitchen sink in there, because we're just trying to like give them everything because we care so much. And we're like, oh, do this and this and this. And we end up being like all over the place. So like if you're going to do a post just about the insecurity, focus just on that. Or if a post just about imposter syndrome or just about confidence, don't put all of them in the same thing. Yeah, prove myself energy. The one big promise is something I can't promise. I don't know what you do.
Annabelle, if you're around, you can unmute, but my understanding of the big promise of your brand is getting to the root of imbalances and improving fertility rather than promising a pregnancy.
Yeah, I guess whenever I ask someone what they want, the obvious answer is they want to get pregnant. So, and I always say, like, I can't guarantee you'll get pregnant, but here's what I can guarantee. And there's a lot of like little micro wins along the way, but I always like struggle with that out of just like integrity.
Mhm. And that's perfect. I mean, I always say integrity first. And you also can say, you know, I've helped X number of women get pregnant. I never guarantee it, but I have a proven system that helps women be healthier, that's helped X number become pregnant, like that sort of thing. And yeah, in this case, you kind of ride the delicate balance of making sure that you stay in integrity. I mean, even me as a copywriter, I never promise certain results for people, like, oh, I'll get you X number of sales or make you X number of money. Like, I don't. I count. There's too many factors, just like with creating a baby.
Mhm.
It's a lot of factors that
Yeah.
are completely out of your control. And so, yeah, you just stay in that integrity, but then that's where the social proof comes in and say, here's what I've been able to do to help these other women.
Thank you.
Great question. Can't promise that people have a great mental health either. Yeah, but like for you, Emma, you could say you'll have the tools to be healthy. Like you can promise that you'll give them the proven tools so that they don't fall so low, or so that they know how to overcome every challenge. Or if there's something specific like anxiety or suicide or something like that, then you could speak to that. But yeah, that's what I would say is more of the focus. Not that we're focusing on like what the tools are, because people don't care about the vehicle, they care about the result. You want to write that one down. People buy results. That's why we have the one big promise, is because people buy results. If you want to get to the airport to catch your flight, it doesn't matter if you have your spouse take you. It doesn't matter if it's an Uber in a Prius or a shuttle van. What matters is that you get to the airport and you don't miss your flight. It's that end result that you want. The vehicle to get there doesn't matter. So don't focus on the tools or the steps, but you just need to let them know that what you have can help them get to a better place in life. Care about the beach, not the plane. Yes. It's like the sizzle, not the steak, right? They want, or another example is the drill. You don't sell a drill because drills are really awesome. You sell a drill because they want the hole, right? So you're selling the hole. The drill just happens to be the thing that makes the hole for you, right? So that's how you want to think of whatever it is that you do in your program, which is the drill, but sell them the hole. That's what they want. Sell them the princess, to look and feel like a princess.
This is so good, Dawn. Thank you so much.
Yes, my pleasure. Super fun to be here.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Oh my gosh. Well, I don't want to take up too much of your time. I know we're at the end, but I will drop your socials and all the things in our Slack so people can find you and connect with you.
Amazing. Yes, I'd love, even if on Instagram you just shoot me a quick hello, so that I can follow you back and see what you're up to. And if there's questions you think of after this time, feel free to message me on Instagram. I'm happy. I love getting to do these kinds of things. So
Yay. So good.
amazing. Well, thank you so much for having me. Enjoy the rest of your retreat.
Sounds good. We will. Bye.
Bye.
Oh, that was so good. Okay, let me stop recording.